Hello everyone. Today's lesson will be about passive voice. We'll start by the personal passive voice, then we'll move to the impersonal passive voice. Okay, here we have understanding active and passive voice, verbs and voice. Voice is the form a verb takes to indicate whether the subject of the verb performs or receives the action. Okay, when we have an action, we usually have a doer and a receiver. Okay, the doer is the one who does the action, and the receiver is the one who receives the action. There are two types of voice: active voice and passive voice. The active voice indicates that the subject of the verb is acting. Okay, the subject of the verb is the doer, the agent. Because the subject does or acts upon the verb in such sentences, the sentences are said to be in the active voice. Here we have some examples showing that the subject is doing the verb's action. Okay, first, the dog jumped onto the boy. The dog is the subject. He is the doer of the action, is doing the jumping. Jumping is the action. Okay, here we have the dog is doing the jumping action. Okay, the dog is the doer of the action. Christy will give a book report to the class. Christy is the subject. She is doing the giving action. The computer ate my paper. Okay, here the computer means the printer. Okay, the machine which is used for printing text. The printer ate my paper. In a passive voice sentence, the subject and object flip-flop. Okay, the meaning here is that the subject of the active voice becomes the object of the passive voice, and the object of the active voice becomes a subject in a passive voice. Okay, we switch the order of subject and objects. The subject and object flip-flop. The subject becomes the passive recipient of the action. Yes, here the subject becomes an object. It receives the action. So the subject becomes the passive recipient of the action. Because the subject is being acted upon, such sentences are said to be in the passive voice. Here we have some examples showing the subject being acted upon by the verb. The boy was jumped on by the dog. The boy was jumped on by the dog. Boy is the subject. Was being jumped on is the verb. Here the boy is the recipient of the jumping action, but he acts as a subject of the passive voice. Book report will be given by Christy to the class. The report is the subject of this sentence. Will be given is the verb. Okay, here the report is the subject of the passive voice, but it receives the given action. My paper was eaten by the computer. Paper is the subject of the passive voice. Was being eaten is the verb of the passive voice. Okay. Here we have some reasons the active voice is used for. Most writers prefer to use active voice because it is more direct. Yes, here we are talking about the active voice. Okay, the active voice is more direct than the passive voice. Let's compare between these two sentences. The waiter dropped the tray of food. The tray of food was dropped by the waiter. Okay, a tray is a flat and shallow container with a raised edge or rim used for serving food and drinks. Yes, here we have the waiter dropped the tray of food. This sentence is in the active voice. In the passive voice, the tray becomes the subject. The tray of food was dropped by the waiter. Okay, and in the passive voice sentence. Okay, and the recipient here is the tray. Okay, the tray is receiving the dropping action. Okay, then the active voice is less awkward and clearly states the relationship between subject and action. Yes, it's more direct and less awkward. Let's compare between these two sentences. Your request for funding has been denied by the review committee. This sentence is in the passive voice. Okay. The review committee denied your request for funding. The second is in the active voice. As you can remark, the second sentence is more direct and less awkward. The active voice sentence pattern propels the reader forward through your writing, thus avoiding weak prose. Okay, here the meaning is that the active voice leads you directly to the relationship between the subject and action.